third somewhere. Can't see it though. There's more people out and about than normal. Probably the snow. Bringing him out. Somebody with his dog over there. He's so tiny though, so it's okay. So he's pretty here. There's like this tree. There's sometimes horses over here, but I reckon it's too cold maybe for them, so they're not here. Look at that light through the trees. There's this TV show actually called Winter Walks in the UK. There's only like a few episodes, but this is, I actually feel like I'm doing it right now. Although I'm not famous enough. I'd have to be like a famous poet or something. I don't know if it's gonna like overexpose this. The sun's right there. Who knows? Hello and welcome to my little art room in the northwest of England. I'm Sam, and if you've not been here before, you're very welcome. And I'm mainly a comic maker, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. I say comics, but honestly, like anything that kind of combines art and words quite deliberately. Whatever I mean by that. But I've tried to make a video for quite a while recently, and I have kind of scrapped a few videos. I feel like it just hasn't really been working, and I don't know, maybe it's just been the lead up to Christmas that has been I've been tired, I've been a bit like snowed under with stuff I had to do, and I think I've just felt a bit overwhelmed. So it's actually Boxing Day today, and I had a bit of time, a bit of quiet to hopefully reflect on 2024. I wanted to do that before 2024 comes to an end, and then I'd actually like to do a video about like looking to 2025 as well, maybe in the next few days or in the new year. So I wanted to get this video done before the year is over. So yeah, in terms of my art, I thought I would just go through and think back to what I've done this year. And I actually started this year making this scene, the pyjamas scene, which I drew completely in pencil. All these things I'm going to show you can watch videos where the entire video is about me making these things. But yeah, this was like essentially a silent zine, like there's hardly any words in it. And really, it was literally about a fox having a really bad day and going home and cozying up in bed and just finding a lot of peace in that, a little bit of peace. I think at the time I just wanted to do something that was just on paper, really enjoying drawing. I really enjoyed the process of this. It was really therapeutic and really enjoyable. And I completed this in about 2 weeks-ish. So it wasn't a long project, but it was really, really fun to make. And yeah, I definitely am missing, having done a lot of digital work this year, which we'll get to, I am missing that feeling of pencil on paper, and this definitely was an exercise in that, so I think I need to maybe do something like that again. I do think because it was silent and it didn't have much storyline to it, I did struggle to kind of put it out there because it was harder to kind of make content with. I found it seems hard to explain, but I hardly sold any of these, unfortunately, but I do still sell them even now. It's just feels like a bit of a slower one. I also made some little bookmarks with it. Have I got some here? No. It's really helpful of me to not be able to show what I'm talking about. But I did make some bookmarks with it as well that showed the illustrations that I sold. I still sell with them. And I liked those. I thought they were nice too. So I was pleased with that project, but I think it was hard to get out there. And yeah, after I made this, it kind of made me want to do something more wordy. You know, it kind of what made me want to do the opposite. The next thing I kind of did mainly was this zine. Oh, a little Keel Toys tag that I must have taken off one of my many teddy bears. But yeah, this actually was my most viewed like YouTube video where I made this one. I think partly because I was able to show the process of the whole thing from beginning to end, which was really nice. But this again I drew in pencil, and this was one of the classic like fold out zines. And the storyline was actually kind of similar to the message in the pajamas scene, which was that, you know, if you're going through a hard time, there's not always this magic solution, but just a small thing can sometimes shift your mindset, or just make you feel a little bit better in the moment. And then it opened out like this. So those are really fun to draw because you can draw these like big pages and they can fold together to this like quite nice fold out experience, which a lot of people I think really enjoy the fold out bit. It was the same format as my Large Chips for Tea zine, which I have the original of here, which also, like the year before, they made this in 2023, but this did really well online, so I fancied making another one, and that's why I made the Something zine. But yeah, this one, you know, this one I made quite casually, like randomly on a call with my friend. I didn't expect it to do well, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, this one about somebody and their mouse friend. I often really like animals in things, like animal companions or non-human companions. You know, which is, you know, fun to do, I think, talking animals and stuff I like. But yeah, this was a bit more naturey, which is funny because I kind of went in quite a non-naturey direction. But I enjoyed this. This was another that, despite its popularity, hardly sold any of these so far. But you never know. They're made and you never lose them. But they are a bit difficult to actually produce. That's the downside of these. These I can just get printed and I outsource them. Things like that. I actually am outsourcing a lot of my stuff now. But in terms of like I'm getting it printed by a printing company and then they send it to me. But this like I have to do myself because it's quite hard to get double-sided A3 paper printed in the right way so that you know you can fold it together properly. So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, and then interestingly, I kind of went in quite a different direction because I started making my serial comic, Toast in the Machine, which is a soft sci-fi comic. I've always been interested in sci-fi and I kind of fancied moving towards it a little bit, and I did some pieces about robots, I think towards the end of 2023 or the start of this year, I can't quite remember, but I sort of played around with a robot character and I quite liked the design and I wanted to move that forward. So I had this idea for a human and a robot running some kind of food thing, you know, like a restaurant or something. I'd had that idea for quite a long time. I know it's not really necessarily an idea, it's just like a basic concept. But I kind of ended up developing it more and decided to make it a food truck, because I thought it would have a bit more like movement to it. I could move it to different locations. I could have different vibes and moods to the places. Like, don't get me wrong, I think I like things that have a familiarity, like environments that stay the same, but I thought ultimately I can still have that with the van, but it can allow it to have different kind of weathers and moods, and it's a bit easier to draw as well, not having to draw an entire environment. Because like I'm very new to drawing comics. This was like starting Toast in the Machine is definitely by far the biggest comic project I've ever done, and still is. And over the course of the past, you know, however many months since I started it in about June, I think, I've now done 3 installments of it. I've just finished the 3rd installment. And by installment, I mean like I've been doing about 4 or 5 pages at a time. and I would say there's probably going to be another like 7 installments roughly. So I think it's going to take me the best part of next year to complete like the story arc that I've planned. And it's been both really fun and really challenging, because I've done it all digitally, and when I'm doing that, I do sometimes miss like pencil on paper. And at the same time, like I do think digitally, it's just a bit easier to get it made because it already takes so long. But the digital tools do help me to like reference back, you know, so that I can keep some form of consistency with characters and stuff, because I have never drawn people like the same character so many times. But I decided to just throw myself into it because I just decided I wanted to learn while doing, because I know I have perfectionist tendencies in my mind, and if I keep planning, if I keep practicing, I will never do it and I'll just get tired of it, or I don't know, I'll feel too scared to ever actually do the project. So I wanted to start it, and my mindset was that it was almost like starting writing a series and thinking like, I compared it to like writing the first episode of Bob's Burgers and saying like, you know, if you think you're going to do this for a long time, like don't judge your first few episodes very harshly, or don't even judge your first 20 episodes very harshly. So even though this is going to have taken ages, I'm still not like seeing it as a huge deal. I'm just sort of saying to myself, it doesn't need to be brilliant. And already, like, there's times when I've been really disheartened about it and thought, it's really inconsistent and it looks terrible and it's really bad. And I even changed the colour mode at one point because I started drawing it in RGB colour mode and I moved to CMYK. Some people have no idea what the heck I'm talking about, but essentially it makes it easier to print the one I've changed it to. But I made some mistakes and I don't know how to change the first 2 ones, so I'm just going to have to print those in slightly different colours. Which, again, everything's going to be a bit rough around the edges. When I print this out, it's not going to be perfection by any means. Nothing I ever make is going to be perfection, but I'm just trying to make stuff, you know, and I'm actually really proud of myself for continuing with that story, because I've never, like, committed to a long form thing before really with this. Like, I've been scared to spend a long time on the same thing, and this is definitely the most consistent I've been with a project like that. But yeah, with missing pencil a bit, I did do like a drawing involving a process that I think I would prefer to move to eventually, which is drawing with pencil. So the pencil drawing of this was done traditionally, and then I coloured this with digital colour. So this was like a combination of the two, which I really, really liked the effect of, because for me, like, I am a drawer, like I don't like painting very much. Like I can on occasion, but I really like drawing with pencil, and then like leaving it as that is hard. It's also hard to add colour to pencil drawings in traditionally, I would say, as well, without losing some of that line quality. So that combination of the traditional and digital was really nice, and I think that's the way forward for me, because it means that I can have that organic process of the drawing that feels a bit more like it's more me to do that, but also digitally have the colour to help keep that pencil. I'm losing the grip of words here, I think. But yeah, I liked doing that. But I think Toast in the Machine will remain digital probably, but we'll see. At least this first issue will anyway. But yeah, I think, so yeah, the vibe of things kind of took a different turn towards that more sci-fi realm. But to me, like, you don't have to say that, okay, sci-fi now doesn't even include nature. Like, part of the reason I wanted to try to like incorporate sci-fi is because I think it's a really fascinating thing and brings up a lot of fascinating topics. But to me, it doesn't have to be like against nature. Like, I don't really like sci-fi as a consumer. That's these kind of Blade Runner-esque like sci-fi worlds where everything's really like very, very you know, technological and there's not a tree in sight kind of thing. In fact, one of my favourite books, which kind of inspired me, was about, it's called Psalm for the Wild Built, which is about kind of like a world where, like very far in the future, it's kind of a solar punk world where there's a lot of technology, but there's also a lot more like environmental. It's like a quite a sustainable world where like technology and the environment and nature are working together. And I love that idea of the future. It may be very optimistic, but I think solar punk is like the first time I felt like, yeah, that could actually work. You know, that's a bit of a, it's a bit of a big topic, but I find it really interesting. But yeah, and I think, there's a lot of, for me, I think technology is like a reality of our lives, and it kind of fascinates me. So I think it's a way to incorporate that. In another way, it's also just fun to have this like non-human character to bounce off, and even just visually, it's a lot easier than having to draw like a human all the time. And there's also like personal reasons why I like robots, where I have found logic very comforting, mentally, over the past couple of years, and one of the ways I actually like help myself is I actually picture that I am a robot, and when things go wrong or I'm feeling bad, I think of like a logical reason why that is. So I might go like, oh, it's okay, I've just like not had enough like human input, I've not had enough friends, so I've like not seen my friends enough, or spoken to them enough, or like oh, I've just not been outside enough, I've not got enough oxygen, I've not, like it's well, oxygen, we're always getting oxygen, aren't we? But you know what I mean. I say I make sci-fi, but I am not a scientist by any means. It's that's why I call it soft sci-fi, because I'm like, I don't actually understand these things, seriously I don't. So yeah, that's a bit of a side note just about like mentally, it's a bit of a personal link for me to robots, but also I think it's just a really fascinating thing. It brings up a lot of interesting topics, I think, and quite relevant current topics as well. And I think that honestly, like when you talk about robots and technology, you're talking about humanity very much, and about how we, what we value as human beings, and what we think being human is, and all these kind of things. And I think it's really interesting. Anyway, I'm going to do a whole video on that at some point, I think, about sci-fi and why I do this about robots, why I find robots interesting. But yeah, it was interesting to take that turn into quite a different topic. But that's not to say that that's all I'm going to make for the rest of my life, because even now I have ideas that I don't really want to like put into a sci-fi realm. But it's just has been something that's been interesting, I think, to approach, and it's nice to design characters that don't have to be human. And I have to admit, like, yeah, I like doing the odd animal character, and I do enjoy that. I think sometimes I'm finding it hard to think how to make it, sort of an animal character that stands out in some way. So yeah, it's been a lot of different ideas and a lot of different approaches to things this year. And as I say, I'm going to do a separate video about what I'd like to do in the next year. But I'm really pleased actually with what I've done this year, in terms of my work. I think I've tried a lot of different things, and I've been consistent with Toast in the Machine, which I think I'm glad I've managed to do that, because I've never been able to sustain that before. And I have had a lot of ups and downs with it, and generally I've felt quite discouraged with my work at times, and with my business, because my business has had a particularly hard year. It's not done very well at all this year, but then I haven't focused as much on it. So really I don't think it's that bizarre that it's struggled, because I have focused a lot more on my work, and like with Toast and Machine, there hasn't been really anything to sell from it. And there won't be for a long time. Like, I've done the odd little postcard with it to sell, to see if just people want a bit of it, but you won't be able to buy the comic for quite a while yet. So even people that really like it, they kind of can't, purchase it yet. And I have had times where, I've thought, gosh, like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, and I felt quite discouraged, and it is hard, like, putting in tons of effort, giving so much, and really, really trying, and feeling like you're putting all your energy into it that you possibly can, and sometimes the return just being so small. And I'm not talking about money here, I'm talking about interest, engagement, all that kind of thing, anything that kind of signals that you're doing, it's getting somewhere. But at the same time, weirdly, this has been the year that more than ever I've like reaffirmed to myself that this is really what I want to do, and regardless of how difficult it is, I don't actually see myself doing anything else. I really, really want to persevere with this. I think for me, like, doing something else is a last resort. And I just don't want to give up on this. I think even if I did end up having to go and devote a lot of time to some other kind of job, I would want to do this still on the side. I just think giving up isn't an option for me. Like, this is ultimately what I've always wanted to do ever since I was young, and for a long time I just thought I couldn't. I really thought that I wasn't good enough at it, and so for a long time I didn't pursue it at all. From really quite a young age, from about 14, I was like, well, I'm not good enough at this. There's no hope. I can't do this. Like, and that's what I was told as well, because that's what people are told, like in school and stuff. Not by my parents or anybody, because I've been really, really supported actually by my parents and my grandparents and people like that, my friends and my biggest fans, and I think that's really, really helped push it forward. But it is hard because you can't live off the support of about 5 people, but there's been some really high moments this year. I mean, even YouTube, I feel like I've done better on YouTube this year than the first year. This is the first year I've done YouTube. Didn't expect this to do so well, I mean, I've got upwards of 700 subscribers in the year, and I'm really pleased with that, actually. I think that's brilliant, and I'm really grateful for you being here and watching, and I hope you get something from it. And I haven't actually made many videos. Like, I've probably made about 6, I think, and I want to do a lot more. I think I will have more chance to do more next year anyway, but again, that's looking to 2025, which I'm not meant to be talking about in this video. But yeah, I really appreciate people watching, and I hope to continue to make videos because I've really enjoyed it. And I think I've put a lot of effort in this year, so I'm just pleased with that. And I think I've said to myself, I think the more like down I go and I get disheartened, actually the higher I seem to climb out of it. I feel like the more times that I climb out of it, the more I feel, resilient, and I don't know, feel a bit stronger to it, and I don't feel like I am getting as discouraged now. I'm just sort of ploughing on, and sometimes that's all you can do is plough on and keep trying and hope that it'll work out eventually. So yeah, as I've said before, I'm not trying to be rich from this. I'm just trying to, eventually I'd like to hopefully make some kind of living monetarily. And I just really would like to reach people with my stories, with hopefully comforting messages and interesting messages, and help people feel less alone. And this year, because I've had to focus on Toasting the Machine, I don't feel I have made as much stuff that maybe like really connected with people on an emotional level, or that had that message that maybe I wanted to put out. But it's partly because with Toasting the Machine, I do want to put those messages in it, all those meanings. I'm sort of meaning, like, I want it to have proper meaning to it, but you have to lay the groundwork with a story like that. I'm trying to lay the groundwork and put it within a story rather than sort of it just state something completely. But saying that, I did make a small comic about I made a comic about loneliness, actually. That was one thing, which was this one, which was quite interesting and quite well received. And then I also made a comic reacting to, at the time, the Conservative government talking about, people should work even more. People are taking too much time off work for their mental health and all this kind of thing. And I made I made a piece that, essentially, I essentially wanted to highlight that you can keep saying these things, but ultimately when people lose their lives over it, it's incredibly serious. I wanted to make a piece in reaction to that. I think the comic speaks for itself, honestly. Part of the reason I make work is because I cannot say things very well. Part of the reason these videos go on for like half an hour when I'm probably saying about 5 things, is because I do ramble and I struggle to explain things properly. But when I'm writing and when I'm making comics, I just find the words a bit easier. So that's, and even with a comic like the work one I did, it didn't need words really. It was the visuals that spoke for itself, and the atmosphere. Sometimes that's just a visual thing. I'm a very visual person, like understandably. So sometimes it's getting across a feeling rather than me being able to go on some sort of profound wordy talk about something. I say it with pictures and with comics and with dialogue between characters rather than that. But I do think I like that I've made the odd thing that I feel was a bit more about current issues, and I would like to do that more in 2025. Not to speak about 2025 again, but yeah, I definitely want to do more of that. So yeah, I'm pleased, and yeah, maybe business isn't doing great, but I still feel positive about where I'm at, and I'm ready to give it my all again in 2025. And to talk on a slightly more personal level, as we reach the end of the video, part of the reason I've been able to give a bit more to it is because mentally I've done a lot better this year. I've been a lot more stable. I've been a lot more present, which has been really nice. I posted a video on TikTok about this, kind of celebrating my most mentally stable year in a long time, and without just saying all that again, because it's kind of, I like to kind of capture the moment of things rather than sort of do them over and over again. But I was basically talking about how, like, a couple of years ago, I found out that I was autistic, and that kind of really shifted my life from a very, very difficult number of years to years where I could finally work on supporting myself and managing things better. And it was still really hard. Like, the last 2 years have still been really difficult, but this year particularly has been a lot more level. And I'm always going to have difficulties with things because I'm always going to be autistic. You can't fix it. For years and years I thought I had to fix something, so it was a relief almost to find out that actually this is my life, this is who I am, but that I didn't have to endure like chronic anxiety and chronic depression and paranoia and constant fear and all these kind of horrible things that I was experiencing. So yeah, it's been having that more stability, this year. I've been able to give more to my work as well, which is really nice because my work matters a lot to me. And I do have things outside of it, of course I do. I'm really lucky to have really good friends. I feel, in terms of friendships as well, I've had a really positive year. I feel like friends, new and old, friends that I've managed to meet more, friends that I just speak to on the phone who I've never met in real life, are all people that I feel like I'm able to finally meet as myself, and in turn they show themselves to me, and we have these deeper connections that I was really, really missing for years, because I really am someone who craves connection. That's something that my therapist actually said to me really early on. He recognised quite early on that I'm someone who I really like to deeply know people, and to talk about real stuff, and yeah, I'm really grateful that I have that now. And people that accept me for who I am. In fact, it's a running joke amongst my friends that I'm the Eeyore of the group, because of my slightly melancholic nature, and because in the past I have had quite a lot of bouts of depression and stuff. But what's really lovely is, like, my friend said to me, we still always want to be friends with you and see you, and talk to you, even when you're struggling, even when you're low, even when things are really hard. You don't have to be anybody else for us, you know what I mean? And that was really, really lovely to hear. And it's also just a bit of a joke because I have a bit of a slightly melancholic nature. You may notice in my work. But I'm actually I'm also a very cheery person, like I can be. I'm very easily, you can make me laugh quite easily, all those kinds of things. And I definitely feel more content this year and a lot more light. I feel lighter. And yeah, and do you know as well, I feel, like I say, more equipped to make more work that I feel good about, which is really nice. Yeah. But, you know, I think it's one of the things, you should never feel bad for having a lower capacity. That is just the way some people will always have like a lower capacity to manage things or to do things as much as other people. And that doesn't mean you're less valuable, you can't offer as much to the world. And yeah, I'm grateful that I've got a higher capacity now, but I will never have as much as a lot of people. I'll tell you what, I spend a lot of time like this. That is my absolute happy place. When I lie in bed at night, or well, in the afternoon, and I'm watching TV, and I can shut off from the world. I feel like this year I've really kind of been myself in every way, and reflected on the fact that it's okay if I don't do things in the way other people do, and I can still offer good things to the world, I hope, in a very difficult, scary, horrible world where you feel very powerless. Actually, we all have things to offer the world, and other people and the people in our lives as well. I hope that's true, and I think it is true. And yeah, don't believe it when, you know, you think everything has to be climbing Everest levels of like achievement. I don't know. And you can't help people unless you're willing to be a firefighter or something. You know, again, this is why I make comics, because what the heck am I actually saying? I don't know. This is why read the comics and things will actually hopefully come across in an understandable way. Yes. That's that, I guess. And again, thank you for supporting my work. And I always love comments, so please, any advice, any suggestions. I did get some really great suggestions that I haven't actually been able to like action yet, but I will be doing. I really, really listen to anything you comment. I'm so grateful. And I hope to bring you more videos in the new year. And I hope these videos can somewhat interest you, comfort you, inspire you to make work, and to put your creativity into the world, because there is never too much creativity in the world. The world always needs more art, it always needs more ideas. Gosh, I don't know, this is when I try and say something, I don't know, somewhat profound, and it never comes off right, because again, I can't form a sentence that makes any sense. Yeah, so well done for keeping going, everybody. I'm particularly bad at ending videos. I hope I'm going to be better at finishing stories, because I just hate stories that have bad endings, don't you? So no bad endings for me. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to see you in 2025. Goodbye.